Welcome to my channel. We are going to start a new subtopic under beverages, which is tea. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to describe basic theoretical and practical aspects of tea processing and differentiate the processing techniques between teas. All true teas come from a single, lone plant, Camellia sinensis. Even though there are hundreds, maybe thousands, of different teas out there, they all come from this plant, unless it is an herbal tea.
By referring to their colors, white teas are just steamed and dried, while green, oolong, and black teas will undergo some type of processing. Green teas are steamed or pan-fired, which kills the enzyme which would otherwise cause the leaves to ferment. As it becomes soft, pliable, and easier to work with, the leaves are rolled on heated trays to break down its structure and bring out the flavor juices. After this is done, the leaves are dried or fired until they retain only about 2% of their original moisture. Okay, next we move on to the oolong tea, which in Chinese means black dragon. Is relatively new compared to green and black teas. Oolong teas are only partially fermented, which denotes a tea that is stronger in flavor than green teas, but softer, lighter, and more subtle than the black teas. So it has both characteristic of the teas. The leaves are processed in the same manner as black teas, but they are not allowed to ferment as long. Okay, next let's go to the black teas. Black tea are not steamed like green teas. Instead, they are placed in a room for about a day to wilt or wither. By the end of this time, the leaves are soft enough to be rolled by hand into little balls. This breaks the cells in the leaves, releasing enzymes that cause them to ferment. The rolled leaves are then spread out and left to ferment for a number of hours until proper smell and color are achieved. Next is firing. During this firing, the leaves turn dark and lose all but about 2% of their moisture. Next is flavored tea. Any number of things can be added to the tea in order to change the flavor of the final cup. Many teas have some form of flower or petals in them, adding an aromatic delight to the cup, such as the jasmine blossom or orange flower. Other times, flavor oils, which are chemically identical to natural fruits or berries, are added, giving the tea a delicious fruity flavor like the raspberry or mango. In addition to these, there is practically a limitless number of other things which can be added to a tea to give it specific and unique characteristics. Creativity is the only limit. The last one is herbal teas. Herbal teas are made from leaves, flowers, and roots. Basically, anything that isn't from the tea plant, which is Camellia sinensis. So, they differ from true teas in their range of flavors, from fragrant and flowery to spicy and pungent. They are especially popular due to their medicinal qualities as well as for their unique and fresh flavors. Next, we move on to tea leaf categories. The best tea leaves are small and young and plucked from the tip of the tea bush. The categories of leaf size used as deciding factors for picking includes the flowery orange pigo, where the tiny shoots and unopened buds are picked. Meanwhile, for orange pigo, the youngest open leaves are picked. The last category, Suchong, is referring to older coarser leaves, which is closer to the trunk of the shrub, will be picked. Next, let's look at the tea processing flowchart. As you can see here, each type of tea will undergo different processings starting with sorting and cleaning, while involving the core steps such as withering and drying. The simplest processing is for the manufacturing of white tea, where it just involves the withering and drying steps. While for green tea, the process includes withering, pan frying, steaming or firing, followed by drying or rolling and shaping. Next for oolong tea, starting with withering, the leaves will be shaken or rolled in baskets to bruise leaf edges. Then tea, the tea leaves will undergo short fermentation followed by pan frying and drying. The last one, the common black tea, starting with withering. The leaves then will be rolled into strips or cutting. Then it would undergo full fermentation and firing process. Now we'll go into detail for each processing steps, starting with plucking. For plucking, normally we will use the finest raw materials for tea production. They are the fresh shoots comprising two leaves and a bud. These young shoots are naturally high in polyphenols and caffeine, the key compounds that influence the flavor, aroma, and health benefits of a tea. During withering process, tea leaves are spread on racks to reduce their moisture content for about 6 to 18 hours. The leaves are spread out and allowed to dry in a warm climate, sometimes with the help of forced hot air. This withering process will make tea leaves pliable and easier to handle during further processing. This step is typically skipped in the production of white tea and certain types of green tea. Without withering, fresh tea leaves are more prone to distortion and tend to break up into flakes. Next, we go to rolling process. Tea leaves are rolled in order to break down their structure and release their natural juices and enzymes. So the fermentation process will begin here. On the next stage, the leaves will go through a rolling machine where they are twisted and rolled. By twisting and rolling, the natural oils in the leaf will be released, which brings out their flavor. Other than using machine, the leaves may also be rolled by hand, which will result in higher quality and more expensive grade of tea. The next process is fermentation. Fermentation takes place when tea is spread on trays in a cool, humid atmosphere to oxidize the leaves. It changes the chemical structure of the leaf and allows the tea's characteristic flavor to emerge. The longer a tea is allowed to ferment, the stronger flavor it will have and the darker it will become. The fermentation process is done at 25 to 30 degrees Celsius for 1 to 4 hours. In order to improve the flavor, we can use lower temperature at 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. For firing and drying process, the leaves are dried and the fermentation process will be retarded. So here in this stage, the leaves move through hot air chambers to stabilize the leaves and lock in the flavor. This is done to reduce further oxygen intake of the leaves, where firing is considered as a delicate part of the tea processing steps, which requires a careful eye in order to avoid the burning of any leaves. The temperature used is 90 degrees Celsius and finish at 50 degrees Celsius for 18 to 20 minutes. So after the process, there will be conversion of chlorophyll to pheophytins and pheophorbyte. Next, we go to the final stage, which is grading. So grading is the final stage before longer leaves such as orange picos are used for loose teas. The leftover fannings and dust leaves are used for tea bags. So what you can see here is the descending particle size of the leaves grading, starting with orange pico, and suchong. Next, followed by broken orange pico, and broken suchong. The last one is broken orange fanning and dust. Okay, finish with the tea processing. Now we move on to the tea blending. Tea blending are blend of teas which contain up to 35 different teas and remain constant in terms of the quality, characters, and flavors. Each popular blend has its own recipe, and that recipe is the company's trade secret. Some of the popular brand leading blends are blended to cope with the varying types of water to be tested, and the recipe will be adjusted so that the company's brand remains constant. It takes at least 5 years to train a tea taster, and then it can be a continuous learning process. In order to prepare the teas for tasting, the dry leaves were laid out in containers on the tasting bench. Next, the boiling water is poured and the brewing is carefully timed for 5 to 6 minutes. The brewed tea is then poured into tasting bowls and the infused leaf is tipped onto the lid of the brewing mug. The taster then slurps the tea much as a wine taster does, then rolls the liquid around his mouth to assess the flavor before spitting it out into a spittoon. Other than that, the taster also takes into account the appearance of the dry leaf, the infused leaf, and the color and quality of the liquor. Next, we move on to instant tea. The commercial production of instant teas began in 1940, and this form of tea has grown in popularity in the United States to the extent that it now comprises 42% of tea sales in that country. Although on a worldwide basis, instant tea accounts for only a very small proportion, which is less than 5% of consumption. The demand in the United States is for instant tea soluble in cold water because it is iced tea, which is the real basis for the success of instant tea in that country. While in the other countries, hot tea is the preferred beverage, and it would appear that here the popularity of tea bags has been the factor responsible for the limited consumption of instant teas. For its processing, instant tea begins with extraction of the selected leaf blend, generally fermented black tea. It consists of 10 parts of water to 1 part of tea leaves by weight. The temperature of the extractor need to be adjusted to 60 to 100 Celsius for 10 minutes with final solids of 4%. Aromatics are distilled from the extract with special designed flavor recovery equipment, and it will be concentrated in low temperature evaporators to 25 to 55% solids for subsequent drying. If you found haze in instant tea, this haze is also known as cloud or cream. They appears as cloudiness when the tea is served cold. This happens because caffeine and tannins, which dissolve well in hot water, form an insoluble complex in cold water that cause turbidity. To remove the haze, the tea concentrate is cooled to around 10 degrees Celsius, allowing the caffeine tannin complex to form and settle out, which can be then removed by filtration or centrifugation. This is actually similar to the chill proofing process used in beer. After haze removal, tea essence is added back to restore flavor, and sometimes dextrins are included in a 50-50 ratio with tea solids to protect aroma and improve cold water solubility. The concentrate is then dried using low temperature methods such as spray drying, vacuum belt drying, or freeze drying to preserve flavor and aroma. For the case of bottle and canned teas, the pH is kept above 4.6 to ensure safety and shelf stability. In order to develop a perfect instant tea processing, scientists at the Indian Institute of Technology and Kharagpur, West Bengal, have created a new way to make instant tea. This method is faster, serving about 15 hours and use less labor, which helps lower the cost. So unlike the usual process that use black teas, this one use green tea leaves and buds, giving the tea a stronger aroma and fuller flavor. Here, the process works by extracting liquids from the tea leaves or waste, concentrating it under low pressure, and then drying it into powder using freeze drying, spray drying, or vacuum drying. These steps involve obtaining freshly plucked green tea, crushing the leaves, extracting the juice, and subjecting it to oxidation for an hour in a controlled chamber at a temperature of 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. After the oxidation process, new compounds are formed, and then the green juice turns coppery brown. The fermented or oxidized juice is then steamed and centrifuged to arrest fermentation and to remove the colloidal and suspended materials. The next step is to dry it to obtain instant tea. The residue of the leaves can be subjected to fermentation and drying for manufacturing black tea, minimizing on waste and contribute to further cost savings.